Okay, so we are now on to video 3. At this point, you should have your helmet roughed together. It could be sloppy with some hot glue everywhere. You haven't added Bondo yet, but you're pretty much ready for Bondo, filling, and then sanding. Lots and lots of sanding. So we don't need any of this anymore. But I do want to point something out. I forgot to mention it. I should have probably mentioned it in my last video. The Lowe's bucket doesn't have nearly as much of it, but if you see this print, the outline of the house with the Lowe's name, this is actually almost like a sticker or a decal, and it'll crack and fragment if you bend it, and the Homer bucket's a lot worse. So I'm going to fold this in half and see if I can get it to crack, which I can't. Alright, well nonetheless, that stuff comes off. So if you have an edge where you're going to glue, scrape it off first. You could use a flathead screwdriver to get it started. The first couple ones I did, this bucket must be of a much higher quality. Anyhow, take this stuff off. You can see how it's starting to scrape off. Get that off if you're intending to glue that edge. So like all along here where the cheekbone comes down the visor, I would clean that up so that you're hot gluing the polyvinyl to polyvinyl and not the decal of the bucket. Sandpaper, you could also use your coarse sandpaper to rough it up real quick. That's actually probably the best idea. Okay, and then also just a little shout out, thanks for the idea, Jason. I am going to start marketing some infant Mando helmets. I'm not going to give a tutorial on those because I'm going to coin or corner the market, but I will send some of the whatchamacallit, anyways, the winnings, the profit to you. Alright, so you have a rough helmet. There's a huge gap that runs between the hard hat and the outer surface pieces. You could do two things with this. I recommend filling it all with Bondo. The other thing you could do is fill it with hot glue. I did a lot of this with hot glue because I never worked with Bondo, excuse me. And so I filled a lot of hot glue in here. Hot glue is more expensive than Bondo. I think in 3 full squeezes of the gun you could use a stick, and there's like 20 sticks in a bag that costs $7 or $8. So I recommend doing the Bondo. You could do things like, if you're going to put a rangefinder in, you might want to worry about getting that stuff installed, or if you have some earpieces in. What I like to do is, before I start mixing Bondo, I make sure everything is on the helmet that I want on the helmet before I add the Bondo, because adding Bondo later is just a pain. It's easier just to start, one day and finish it that same day. At least you're applying of it, because the best way to do it would be to apply, then when it dries, clean it up, and then apply again, and then rinse and repeat until you have finished product. Okay, so to Bondo, if you haven't worked with it before, I was a little bit intimidated, but it's actually really, really easy to use, and not that hard. $10. I think 1 can will do 2.5, maybe 3 buckets. This is the second can, and I've only used a little bit on this helm. Because of the fact that I was able to use the Sintra here, it made everything cleaner and easier, so I had less Bondo work here in the cheeks than I did on my first or my second. And again, there's pictures of the helmets all Bondoed up, or I believe it's the second helmet that's Bondoed up and ready for cleaning and sanding. Okay, so the Bondo, you have 2 ingredients. You have a grayish looking paste that smells like gasoline, okay? And it's kind of thick. And then you have your hardening agent. The paste will not dry or harden if you leave it open. It just stinks. So be in a well-ventilated area. Like I said before, use gloves. I don't remember if I mentioned my mixing techniques or the amounts that I mix in my first video. Anyhow, this is what I usually do. I'll pour into this container that comes with it about a golf ball size. I use pieces of the scrap bucket to kind of cut some tools to scrape and apply. Just you want a straight edge pretty much, and then I like to cut mine at an angle on the tip just for dabbing or picking little edges. Golf ball amount of the paste in here, then you're going to add your hardener. The more hardener you add, the faster your Bondo will set. I do a golf ball size of Bondo, maybe a little bit more than that. And it's kind of hard because it'll spread out, but I'll fill up, you know, a good portion of this tub. And then I will add a pea, like the size of a pea, to maybe that and a pea and a half worth of the hardening agent. Now this is red. It'll probably stain your clothes and stuff, so like I said, the gloves are good. And then you need to start mixing it. When you mix it, you need to mix it so that the color of all the Bondo is the same throughout. If you get a color that's darker than this, that just means it's gonna harden faster than this did. Get it all mixed up. Make sure all the colors even. Then you scoop it up and start filling in your gaps. Okay. The first time you go around this rim, I do it really fast because I don't want to lose any of my Bondo mixture. I don't want it to harden up on me. So I get kind of messy with it, and I just start filling it in, scooping it in as fast as I can into this this upper portion. Then, if I get a good amount of that on there to where it filled the hole in that first mixture, I wouldn't get so bold. I'd try a smaller amount than I did first, if you've never used it before. Any leftovers that I have, I use my gloves, get a little bit on my finger, and smear around the cheeks or up the side. For the sides, because you're going to have glue lines here and then different edges of different pieces of material where these glue together. You could take the tool and scoop it up and around to clean it up. Okay. Once your Bondo, if you have a lot in here, once it starts to feel and look like lumpy, hard oatmeal that needs way more water, you're done. I wouldn't apply it at all. All it does is create a pitted mess that's harder to sand, and you're going to have to coat over it again anyways. It definitely happened to me quite a bit on the first time, and all that meant was I had to apply more, sand more, apply more, and sand more. It pretty much, if you start smearing this stuff on your helmet, while it gets that lumpy and clumpy, it's going to turn into, like, the surface will turn into something that looks like an English muffin when you break it in half. There'll be nooks and crannies everywhere, and it'll just create a problem. So if it starts to clumping up on you earlier on, stop. And, you know, just take it as a learning experience. Let it all harden out, and then you take you can hear the crunching, because this stuff has hardened over, I don't know, probably a week. And it'll clean right out, and you throw that away, and then you start over again. Okay, so while it hardens, you could go work on another project or another part of your kit, whatever it is you're doing. Come back, check it. It needs to be hard. Sometimes it's a little bit soft. I'd wait. Find something else to do. When it's completely hard, then you can start walking around with a razor knife or a box cutter. If you have a small scraper or something, you can clean up all the edges. So like the bits and pieces that you got where they didn't need to be, you can hit that. With the knife, usually what I'll do is I'll come through and I'll clip off any big chunks, and then I'll go to my coarse sandpaper and I'll sand. I'll sand it even if there are grooves that still need filling, because if you sand it and get it nice, then you know exactly where you need to put your next coat of Bondo. This third time around, I lucked out. I think I only had to do this twice. There are some imperfections, but depending on how you're painting or what look you want, that's okay. If you want a weathered piece, it's just dings, dents, and damage from wear and tear. Alright, so that's the Bondo. Once that's all cleaned up, you are ready to sand some more. Hit all of the edges with the finest sandpaper that you have. Make sure you're getting all the, like I was saying before, the decals off the buckets. Rough it up. It should fog the polyvinyl. I think I have a picture. The final picture on this thread is this helmet sanded and right before I painted it. I cut the visor out. I wouldn't recommend doing that until you are like absolutely sure you're done. My first helmet kind of spread a bit. I'm worried about this one, but I'm thinking about putting some cross braces in there behind there. I just haven't figured out how I'm gonna slide the actual plastic, the translucent, the visor in here. But I think the Sintra is stronger and it'll kind of hold form better. And so I would, after everything's sanded, then you can go ahead and cut your visor out. You can leave any supports you want. Maybe I'll make another video on what I did for my first helmet, which I'm going to go through and change because this is a layer of window tint. So it's not very, it's not fingerproof. It looks all right, but I want something hard plastic. And then that's it. And then you're ready to go. So paint. That's obviously your thing. And what else? That's about it. Alright, I hope this was helpful. If you guys have any questions, shoot a question out in a comment or whatnot, and I'd be happy to answer it. Thank you, and good luck with your helmet.